I just wanted to share a little bit about kind of the purpose of a regenerative organic system plan before we get started. Um, the reason that we have obviously a regenerative organic system plan is to document compliance with standards. So this kind of serves as the foundational document for producers or farmers that are seeking to get certification status. It kind of outlines how the farm is going to operate in alignment with the regenerative organic principles. Kind of the main purposes of it are kind of serve as a roadmap for continuous improvement to help us ensure that we're meeting the pillars and the goals of our regenerative organic agriculture certifications, or even for our personal goals if you're not actually certified. It also helps us for mapping out over time how we're going to track how we track our progress. So Martin is going to be talking about this as well. But for us, it's a journey. You just don't arrive at a certain soil health index. I think we're always striving for more. We're always striving to improve. So the way I look at it is you just don't arrive at a certain point. You're like, oh, I made it. I think you just continue to improve. And that's one thing about some of the regenerative organic certification programs. It's not where you get to a certain level and you stop. It's a continuous process. So increasing soil organic matter, reducing external inputs, enhancing biodiversity, and strengthening worker participation is some of the big ones as part of that. And then supporting holistic farm management, looking at every aspect of the farm management, looking at it holistically, how each part integrates with the other, and Martin is going to talk a lot about that too today, and looking at water usage and how we graze our land, how we use intercropping and cropping, and how our labor practices and kind of all of that works together in a whole systems approach to biodiversity and farming. And then also providing transparency and accountability. We share these plans, the plans that Martin and I use. We do share those with our certifier and with our inspectors so that they can see what we're doing on our farms. And so that also helps us to share with them the different things that we're doing so that they can properly evaluate our operations. And it also provides a framework and holds us accountable to the standards and what we're doing. It does build on the NOP organic system plan. For those who are new to this, I just want to share, you can transition to NOP and regenerative at the same time. My story is different than Martin's. I actually got NOP organic system, and maybe Martin did too. I think we were both certified to the NOP, and then we added the regenerative certifications. So it was kind of a two-step process for us, but there's a pathway to do both at the same time. And it does include soil health. In addition to soil health, it also includes farm worker fairness and animal welfare aspects. You can get more information about these particular plans and the particular journey or process that we're going to be talking about today at regenorganic.org. There's other resources out there as well besides this one. There's a number of regenerative certifications, but this is the particular one that focuses on regenerative and organic together, which I believe is the right way to do it. And so we're going to be talking today, we're not going to be diving too much into these system plan parts, but I just shared them with folks who are watching this so they get a general idea of what are all the different parts that go into building out a system plan. So, looking at the general information, the parcels, the sites, doing your soil health addendums, which is your on-farm soil analysis, your soil disturbance plan, or some call it a tillage plan, your crop rotation tracking. We also track flora and fauna on our farm. Maybe Martin can speak a little bit to that with his biodynamic farming. We also track performance indicators, looking at how we're improving over time, and then our soil test results, which we do annually. On the social fairness side, because Martin and I are in the global north, we are exempt from some hired labor expectations, but there's some things that would make us non-exempt to the social fairness, and that is if we're hiring H-2A workers or youth or child labor, then we would have to complete the social fairness addendum or the social fairness pillar part of the ROSP. But because I'm not hiring H-2A workers, I don't have to certify to that. And then also, Martin and I both have to disclose our supply chain, and that is for transparency and accountability purposes as well, just making sure that the product maintains its credibility all the way through. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to pull up Martin's presentation.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. And thank you, Angela, for the introduction, and Carrie for hosting this as well. Can everybody hear me okay? My throat's a little scratchy this morning.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh, good.
I can hear you fine. You sound great.
All right. So my name is Martin Goder. I grow, that's me and my dog when we were both quite a bit younger. I think that was about 10 years ago. So I grow small grains and pulses in central North Dakota. My rotation, rye, I grow barley, wheat, oats. I've gotten into buckwheat and millet. And then I really like peas in my rotation as well. I've grown hairy vetch. I'm looking into getting into Kernza. So I grew up on a conventional farm, and honestly, I never wanted to farm. I left the farm as quick as I could, and then when it came with my dad and uncle, they were getting ready to retire, and felt it was my duty to see if I wanted to carry on the family business. And I knew that coming back to the farm, I worked for them for a little bit, and then what I wanted to do, I knew that I wanted to be a organic farmer. It was organic or nothing else. So I came back to the, wow, that was a quick slide. So I came back to the farm and learned from, I guess, day one. I had no real background in farming, no education in farming. I just knew that if I was going to farm, I was going to farm organically. So day one, I started converting a small bit of land to organic, and then as my dad and uncle were getting out of their farming operation and letting some land go, I was taking on the rents for it and converting it immediately to organic. The transition years, I learned a lot through the transition years, and within the first year of being organic, I discovered biodynamic, and I said, well, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to be biodynamic. So I started going biodynamic, and I haven't looked back. Over the years, I've been biodynamic since 2015, 2014. I took on regenerative organic in 2022. Real organic, when I discovered those, it was nothing to add them into my certification. And then organic since 2014. I'm also the president of Northern Plains Sustainable Agriculture Society this is my second term now. And that's been a huge help to me along the way. So I felt that I value that organization, and I felt that it was a good place for me to be, and we've done a lot of good things. They helped me over the years, and I felt that I could help them. And I've got unwavering optimism. I had to put that in there because I guess I'm a little bit more than different than most of your organic growers. I've come along learning as I go and seeing the failures and learning from the failures and discovering better way to do things. But along the way, that unwavering optimism has gotten me through. And when we get into what I'm actually doing here, you'll see where that unwavering optimism comes in. You could, next slide, please. So biodynamics, it was getting into regenerative organic certification was pretty easy for me. I actually had to adapt the regenerative organic certification to what I was already doing in biodynamics. And just a quick rundown on biodynamics. It originated in 1924 with Rudolf Steiner's course in agriculture in Dornach, Germany. He had a amount of farmers that were farming a large amount of acres in Germany that were begging him to come and give a talk on how they could farm better, farm more with nature, and really increase their soil fertility. They were farming the old-fashioned ways, and they saw declining soil fertility. And Rudolf Steiner warned very early that chemical agriculture or a dependence upon chemical agriculture would eventually end up destroying our soils. They're really, really depleting our soils, and in the process, our food quality. So biodynamics was came out of that talk that he gave to them, and it's the farm is seen as a self-contained living organism. When we get into the comparison to regenerative organic, one thing about biodynamics is the farm, everything should recycle back through the farm, and there's very little off-farm inputs that you can use. It's more about building your own fertility and using what's available to you to further your development of your soil health. So as a biodynamic farm, it's all or nothing. I've got to have the whole farm certified biodynamic. I couldn't take a portion of it and say, hey, this part's biodynamic and this part's not. The other big aspect of biodynamics is the alignment with cosmic rhythms, just kind of like the Farmer's Almanac. And I guess there's been a lot of research through some pretty good researchers, Maria Toon probably being the best one after Steiner to kind of prove out what he was saying. But if you can plant with the moon and the planet alignments, the constellations, all the entire environment affects the way the plant grows and affects it all the way through the growing season. And then we also utilize what's known as homeopathic preparations, biodynamic 500 through 508. I was going to put a slide on here explaining what each of those are, but this isn't about biodynamics. So just to break it down really quick, biodynamic 500 is a way of getting horn manure, basically, is what it's called. And you see those horns buried. Those are on my farm there. But it creates the best humus, the best compost that even Elaine Ingham has said that the best compost she's seen was prepped with biodynamic 500. And then biodynamic 501 is the other major one, and that's horn silica. It's basically silica, and it's really interesting to see that modern agriculture is now looking at the benefits of silica when being applied to your crop as far as photosynthesis, tolerance to cold. And then the 502 to the 508 are herbs that are found pretty much on every farm. That's why Steiner kind of chose them. But herbs that bring in the vitality of what's already on your farm and recycling it back into your farm, and each herb is related to a certain mineral for the soil. But it's definitely kind of the woo-woo part of the biodynamics, but I'm sold on it. I've seen the benefits of it. So we get the next slide. The 3 pillars of biodynamic farming, and this I swear is going to probably be one of the last times I'm talking about biodynamics in this slide or in this thing, or big time biodynamics. So the 3 pillars of biodynamic farming is social responsibility, the ethical treatment of workers, animals, community, and land, animal welfare. Livestock is integral to the farm organism, and biodynamics recommends livestock. Actually, there's a requirement, but it's not feasible for a lot of operations, and I'm still trying to work on figuring out how to get it into my operation. So biodynamics does have a waiver to allow those who can't integrate livestock. And even if I can't bring livestock on my farm, I've got a mass amount of livestock underneath the soil, as some famous, I can't remember who it is. I think it's probably Gabe Brown who talks about the livestock underneath the soil, as well as wildlife that goes across my soil. So I'm still working to get in the livestock. And then holistic agricultural processes, or as Angela said, the soil health practices. I call them the agricultural processes, but same thing, which is applying the biodynamic preparations, proper crop rotation, and maintaining and building your soil health. And so, quick comparison here and why it was easy for me, and somewhere places where I had to adapt what I was already doing to regenerative organic. The social responsibility, they're pretty much go hand in hand with ROC. I'm a one-man show. That's really easy for me to take care of. I probably abuse my employee, but I am my employee, so that's all right. Um, Livestock, it's the other pillar that's pretty much line in line with regenerative organic, and I'm still working on integrating livestock, so I'm not going to be really talking about that in any of this. It's something that I have high hopes to get towards. That's that unwavering optimism again. The agricultural processes, that's what I'm really going to be discussing. I feel that that's the only thing I can really have any input on at this point in time. It's what I've been doing. And as far as regenerative organic, there's biodynamics was already doing pretty much everything that regenerative organic required. And the only thing I really added in, I suppose, was doing the soil test, and I'll get into that. The scope, as I said, biodynamics is the whole farm, regenerative organic. You can do it gradually, which is, I mean, a genius idea, gradually, and get the confidence that you're doing the right thing, and add more acres and add more acres. And as you get more and more of your farm certified regenerative organic, you move up in tiers. Bronze, silver, and gold, I believe, are the tiers for the regenerative organic certification. And that that was probably a really good move on their part. As I said, it's not easy to go whole hog, as I guess we'll say. If I could get the next slide. Oh, and that's my. If we could go back, I apologize. I just love that picture. So biodynamics, one of the things we do is 501 is that silica spray, and you're getting up early in the morning and you want to get that 501 out on the field before, just as the sun's rising. It increases the photosynthesis as that dew is just coming off the plants. That's when you want that 501 sprayed out. And I love that picture. It's a chemical sprayer that I washed. We'll say I did a lot early on. I was really anal about what I was doing, and I went through that sprayer probably 10 different times with cleaners. I wanted to make sure that there was absolutely nothing left in there, and that's actually my uncle's old sprayer. But that's a wonderful picture for me because the sunrise, as well as the sprayer, it symbolizes that we can be using that equipment for the right processes. As far as the agricultural processes go, I'm going to zoom in here because I can't. There we go. The practices that I use both in biodynamic and regenerative organic, diverse rotations. I've learned rotations, I guess, more over the years. I've added buckwheat and millet in more for to get a later season crop in. I guess I'm not a big fan of soybeans, so I don't grow them as well as in my area. I've learned that soybeans are not a good organic rotation to have. We got a lot of rocks, and I like my combine. No year-round tillage or both bare ground. That is both certifications stress that we shouldn't be keeping bare ground or doing summer fallow or constantly tilling our ground. I actually, my dad and my uncle, they were conventional farmers. They were one of the first adopters of no-till. So I was going to all these no-till conferences with them when I first got back and started working for them before I went my own direction. And I really appreciate the fact that the no-till is focusing on soil health. And that's one thing when I went organic and they said you couldn't do no-till. Now I'm not no-till 100%, I guess you could say. I don't do any deep tillage at all. I guess the deepest I go, and Dave Franz, he's a researcher from NDSU, or was. I'm not sure where he's at these days. I heard back in the day, one of his speeches, that if you're not going below that 1.5, 2 inch mark, you can pretty well consider yourself no-till. And I use a hoe drill, so I figure that that's about where I'm at. But other than that, a little light disking to incorporate some peas into the ground at the end of the year for the volunteers to get some good cover going, and field cultivating, which keeps it pretty shallow. But I guess I can't say no tillage, but it's I leave my covers, let my covers grow, leave my residue, and as often as I can, plant directly into it the next year. So no till organic, it's getting close. Covers and green manures, I guess I just kind of covered that too. Both of them are requiring covers and green manures. Uh, Biodynamics actually requires 20% of your fields be green manure, or covers at least 20% of your fields are left residue on them at the end of the harvest. And I do it pretty much on, I'd say 95%. So I'm right up there. And green manure is kind of the same thing, letting those volunteers grow. We'll get into this, but I am not afraid of weeds. I actually, it took me a little bit to get to that point, coming from the conventional side of my dad and uncle and what they thought. But yeah, I let my weeds do their thing. They're there to fix the soil, and I've watched them go away. So I even include weeds in my green manures, and or as I like to call them, native species. But yeah, so they're in there, as well as volunteer crops after the harvest. Biodynamics is specific in requiring 10% habitat for biodiversity. So when we do the certification, biodynamics looks at all of the land you're farming, all the land you're in management of, and it requires a 10% biodiversity habitat there, which is, shelter belts, riparian, sloughs. In my area of the Prairie Pothole region of North Dakota, and we do have some shelter belts, or I do, and that works pretty well. Volunteer covers and crop residues, as I covered that, both Regenerative Organic and Biodynamics were already doing that. My preparations, obviously ROC doesn't require the preparations, but I do them year in and year out without fail, and I'm sold. Limited to off-farm fertility. ROC stresses they want you to limit your off-farm fertility and to work on building up your on-farm fertility. And they do allow for off-farm inputs. I don't think they put a limit on it necessarily. They do. I mean, it's something that's looked at. I was already doing that with biodynamics. You can only take 10% by weight any of your inputs in your fields, and that's including the seed. So getting back into seed saving. Biodynamics prefers that you save your seed. It's not an actual, law in biodynamics, but it definitely is stressed. So I've been saving all of my seed unless I have to buy a new variety. I've been using most of my seed for the last 9 years now. Water conservation, both of them are very conscious of water conservation, and that was something that was easy for me to do. ROC, as I said, allows for partial farm certification, but with biodynamic, it's whole farm certification. So I was already doing that. And then soil tests. ROC, that was something that was introduced to me. I mean, I've done soil tests before, but they require the soil tests. And in one of these slides, I listed those. And I'm more of a person that I like to walk my farm, see what's going on, and I've never really relied on soil tests. But when I did these soil tests, I was actually consulting with Liz Haney of the Haney Soil Test, Regen Ag, and she gave me a lot of confidence that I was doing the right thing, because the soil tests were excellent, as well as she said on a lot of my fields, I've already passed that fungi to bacteria ratio, whereas in most agriculture, it's bacteria dominant, and we want to build that fungi back up. And that shows me I was doing the right thing. I wasn't doing the soil test along the way, but they showed it. If we get the next slide. So soil tests. The soil tests that ROC requires in the first year, and I pulled this directly off their guide, is in the first year is pH. They want to get the pH of your soil, the carbon of your soil, the bulk density, and your soil texture. And then every 3 years, they offer additional soil tests that you can choose from. And those are listed there. That was something new to me. I knew about soil tests, but I wasn't doing them. I figured, a soil test doesn't give me a whole lot of information, but I like what Regenerative Organic is doing on this because it allows not only the farmer, but it allows ROC to help the farmer to move their fields along and to show that they're doing it along as they go. So I'm a big fan of that, and even though I wasn't doing them. Next slide, please. My observation. So on my field, and if you look at that little small picture, I tried putting some pictures in here, but that was my buckwheat a couple of years ago, and I was really, that's field I've been farming the longest, and I was happy when I saw how nice that crop turned out. It was my second year doing buckwheat. My first year I tried it in a drought, so that didn't work too well. So when I grew that buckwheat, I was really happy because I was almost ready to give up on buckwheat, or not try it again, not give up on it, but not try it again, I suppose. And that buckwheat specifically, a little plug for NPSAS, that was buckwheat developed by, or research enhanced by Northern Plains Sustainable Agriculture Society Farm Breeder Network. It's called Davakia, and it's a determinate variety of buckwheat that we've got it out to quite a few different processors and growers, researchers even, and they've been very happy with it. And in taste tests, it's actually right up there in the top 4 as far as taste goes. So we're really happy. That's something that we hope to develop more and bring to market to everybody. So starting at the top here, my penetrometer, I'm always walking my fields. I love going out, and I probably not waste more time, but if I start walking a field, I can't stop. I go and I got to walk the whole field, and it's not just going out and looking at this little plant here 10 feet into the field and 30 feet into the field. Next thing I know, I'm in the center of the field or at the end of the field, and then why not? Let's do them all. And while we're out there, let's do bricks testing, and let's throw a penetrometer in the ground. Let's dig it up some soil and take a look at that. So I spent a lot of time out there, and I guess that old saying is what the best fertilizer is the farmer's footsteps. So I guess I live that. Bricks testing, I pulled this from Thomas Dykstra. He's a researcher out of Florida, and he says that bricks is the refractometer. It's basically the amount of sugars that's in a plant, and at 1 to 2 bricks, the plant needs fertilizer to survive. You take the plant sap and test it. At 3 to 8, the plant's surviving. It doesn't need fertilizers. It's barely surviving on its own. 8 to 12, you're reaching healthy plants with insect resistance. As your sugars rise, insects become less of a problem. And I've seen that. I've never had an insect problem first, but it's interesting. A couple of years ago when we had everybody was complaining about grasshoppers, I would go in my fields and the grasshoppers were leaving the crop alone, but I'd get into like a small patch of thistles and they'd be all over the thistles. And as you build your soil, your weeds or your native species can't compete as much, and they get weaker, and the insects attack them. And I actually discovered a new insect, not a new one. I'm not a scientist, but a new insect I've seen in my field this year just chowing down on diseased thistle. So that was pretty impressive. And then 12 plus bricks, you're seeing no insects, no disease. I've never had an issue for disease. VOM was a big issue in the conventional guys this past couple of years. We've had some wet springs and wet summers and dry summers too, but there was an issue with VOM, and none of my crops tested high in VOM. I think I had like 0.01 if anything. But at 12 plus, your insects don't like the plants. Disease is really not an issue, and you're growing food. You're actually growing food. So I've seen my bricks continue to rise. I just checked them actually earlier this week, and I'm looking at 11 to 15, and I actually tested my peas at a 20 brick, so I'm pretty happy with that. 20 is the highest I've seen. I had peas at 17 a couple years ago, but 20 is the highest I've seen. And then soil structure, always throwing a spade in the ground and looking at the soil structure. And then the weed successions, as I said, I'm not afraid of weeds. I when I take on a field, it stays clean for a little bit because it's got the residual. Every field I've taken on was conventional, and it's converted over to organic. So every field I take on, by the second year, thistle starts coming in. Third year, it's coming in harder. Fourth year, south thistle starts showing up. Canadian thistle reduces. Fifth year, south thistle is pretty well dominant. Canadian thistle's in patches. Sixth year, south thistle still there. Dandelion shows up, but in the end, it's grasses that I deal with, and I'm not afraid of pigeon grass. I guess it cleans out pretty easily, so I've never really been worried too much about that. But I am adding millet into my rotation now, hoping that I can kind of balance that a little bit. And then bacteria to fungi, or fungi to bacteria, however you want to see it. But I'm really building that ratio and getting that fungi back in the soil and seeing the benefits. So as I continue on, I'm doing some additional things every year, and I'm still working on integrating cattle. I had a full season cover and grazing field that I wanted to do this year. Is just a little 37-acre field, and got the crop in a little late, and the native species took over. I'm going to make that decision very soon if I put cattle on there, but the eternal optimist I am, if I can't get cattle on there, it's going to be a full season cover regardless, and it's benefiting my soil, so it's doing everything I wanted it to do minus the cattle. I do a Johnson Sioux bioreactor. That's that picture down there, building fungally dominant compost. I'm using that as an extract as my seed inoculant, and I spray it out with my biodynamic preps as well. And something I started doing just this year is I'm growing in my finished Johnson Sioux compost. I'm growing all the plants, all the seeds that I'm putting in my field. Oats, I throw them all in there as a cover crop, and they're feeding the biology in that in that finished compost, as well as selecting for the biology that's specific to the plants I'm growing. And then I use that as my my seed inoculant, so kind of growing my own seed inoculant. And then this year, thanks to the work of Nigel Palmer, he's got a great book out, Garden Amendments for the Regenerative Farmer, I believe it's called. Don't quote me on that one, but it's something close. I've gotten into weed ferments, and I actually, when you measure using a refractometer, measure the bricks. I'm testing it on small portions these days, but if you spray something on it and the bricks goes up, the plant likes it. If the bricks goes down, the plant doesn't like it. And in my tests so far, my weed ferments have improved my bricks every single time. And I think that might be about it. So I guess in conclusion, I was already doing pretty much everything that Regenerative Organic would have asked for. And I had to add in the soil tests specifically. But they were really accepting of the fact of what I was doing, and it seemed to just go hand in hand with what they were doing. So I became Regenerative Organic, and I look forward to seeing what's going to happen. Thank you. Questions, anybody? I guess if we have any time. I don't think we do.
Yeah,
I talked a lot.
I think, looking at the time, if folks have questions, I tell you what, we're going to open up the questions and at the end of the session. So we'll have those available for folks to ask questions. So thank you, Martin. That was awesome. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and just talk a little bit more about our operation, and then we'll open it up here quick for a panel discussion. So Carrie's got some questions that we put together that she's going to be asking us, and we're going to kind of be looking at it from a couple different perspectives. So hopefully you guys can see that picture okay. A I just wanted to just briefly kind of touch on our operation and how it was a little bit different than Martin's and how we approached our regenerative organic system plan. Martin was kind of already doing these things, and he kind of adapted. The way I look at it is Martin adapted the regenerative organic system plan to fit his operation. We did it the other way. We actually had to adapt our certified organic farm to regenerative. And, I hear a lot of people saying that, oh, organic by nature is regenerative. And I'm going to dispel that myth for you right now that it is not the same thing. And I'll tell you why. We like most farmers, when we got started, I come from fifth generation farm. And when I took over the farm and my grandma passed away, my dad picked it up, and I was learning like Martin. I was new. I didn't know anything, and I was doing what everybody does, which when they have a farm payment is push for yield. And we pushed our soils way, way, way too hard. These are actual pictures from some of our crops that we had. We were, the first 5 years, we were really, really getting some tremendous yields on our crops, but we were only on a 3-crop rotation. We weren't using cover crops. We were tilling the soil for weed control. We were doing everything that we didn't know. I mean, the weeds were just out of control, and all we were doing was just like everybody else says, we were tilling. We didn't have the right equipment. We were tilling and working the soil at the wrong times of the year for the wrong reasons. And while we were getting the yields, we were wrecking our soil. At the end of 5 years, we basically not only bankrupted the soil, we almost bankrupted ourselves. And we stopped farming. We said, okay, this is not working for us. We have to go back and do something different. And that's when we got connected to Regenerative Organic Alliance and Rodale. And I started learning everything I could about regenerative. And I realized that there are some ways of farming organic that are just simply wrong. And there are some ways of doing it right. And I was so disillusioned with the National Organic Program rules. They weren't good enough. They weren't high enough that I said, I'm gonna take this to the next step. So that's why I decided to go regenerative. And then after we jumped on it and I learned more about the certification, I wanted the certification, but I also wanted to be a part of what they were doing. And so I became part of it in a bigger way. But that's a little bit of our story and how it's a little bit different than Martin's. And I will say that we have, based on our Haney tests and based on our soil test results, our soil health index, when we started this process, was about a 4 or 5. We are now, last year we were at ranging somewhere between 8 to 12, depending on where you are in the field. But in 5 years, we've doubled our soil health index. That says a lot about regenerative. I don't think we could have got there without it, without implementing those practices. And our whole farm has been transformed by changing over to regenerative. So with that, I'm going to just kind of stop. And then I thought, Carrie, do you have our questions kind of lined up for the panel? And Martin and I will go through this. We got 15 minutes, but I think, Martin, if we just do 1 or 2 minutes per question, there's only 5. I think we can get through them okay.
Sure, we can start with some questions. And I think you both kind of answered the why you got into regenerative organic practices. So let's go to challenges. I hear a lot about how hard it is to maintain those certifications and people dropping certifications. So I'd like to ask both of you, what are some of the challenges you've faced in maintaining the organic and the regenerative, and Martin, for you, the biodynamic concepts and certifications?
I'll let you go first, Martin.
The challenge, I mean, excuse me. My biggest challenge with organic was mindset. As I said, coming from the conventional, I knew that soil structure was a big thing, and I wanted to be no-till organic. And in the beginning, I was used to all the clean fields, and I was like, yeah, I could do this regenerative organic. And then I realized that's not, the clean fields are not normal. So I gave up on clean fields. In fact, I even though I'm getting rid of some of the native species in my fields, I like to see them. I don't want to grow a monocropped field. So yeah, I really it became about not comparing myself to my neighbors, but it became about I'm growing my soil, and yeah, my crops don't look as lush and great as theirs do, but the yield, the price, and what I'm doing in the long term is well worth it. But the biggest challenge was, yeah, trying to figure out that I wasn't my neighbors. As far as the regenerative organic certification, you probably don't want to hear this, but the markets was the biggest challenge for me. I was already biodynamic, so I was used to it. Don't get me wrong. I don't sell a lot of biodynamic products. I've the markets are not there. So when I saw regenerative organic come along, I knew that name would kind of have a little bit more brand behind it, and I decided to certify regenerative organic. But over the last 3 years, I've really seen the markets develop, and I was early on to the point, well, why am I paying for the certification if I can't sell the crop at any premium above organic? But yeah, I guess I'm watching the markets develop now, and it's really impressive. So those were my biggest challenges.
Thanks, Martin. Do you have one certifier for both ROC and your NOP?
Yes, where food comes from is my certifier, and I've been able to jointly do those certifications. I actually, in past years, I was able to do biodynamic, regenerative organic, and organic all in the same inspection as well. But where food comes from is my regenerative organic and my organic certification.
Okay. Because my response to that is, for me, it's cost. The biggest challenge and barrier for us has been cost. Each time you add a certification, it costs extra money. So for us, because we are certified to the NOP with MOSA, we're certified to Regenerative Organic Certified with Where Food Comes From. We have two certifications, we have two inspections, we have two costs. We're looking at merging those into one certifier. MOSA currently doesn't offer Regenerative Organic Certified. So, and then the other one Martin already mentioned, which is markets, but they are developing more and more.
Great, thank you for that. Another question is, what would you do differently if you could, now that you've come to where you're at?
I'm going to make this one very, very brief. Biology. If I would have focused on biology first. As I said, I had nothing to go on when I started farming. Soil structure was the big thing, and biology, once I started understanding that and getting into that, that's when I started seeing the real changes on my farm. So yeah, I would have started biology, learned about biology, and started building it a lot sooner.
Yeah, I have to echo with Martin that I wish I would have known this when I first started farming organic, because it set us back 5 years. And if I would have paid attention to soil structure and soil biology first and not focused on yields, I probably would be further ahead than I am today.
Great. So my final question, and then we can open it up to other participants, but what's one piece of advice that you would give someone who is transitioning from organic to regenerative organic at this point?
So the one piece of advice I would say, and it's what I did immediately, is I would go to conferences. I mean, we're switching now, and this is great. These trainings, do trainings, go to conferences, attend webinars. I started with the Northern Plains Sustainable Agriculture Conference, shameless plug again, in 2014, and that was one of the best things I did, talking to farmers who are already doing it, old-time farmers, new farmers, and just getting information from people who were already putting it into practice. So learn as much as you can, and those conferences are invaluable.
Yeah, and I have to echo exactly what Martin said. I also started out Northern Plains Sustainable Ag Society conferences, where I first learned about it. It's my first conference, and it changed my life. And then I just started educating myself, but I made so many great connections there. But I also want to mention that also there's programs available in North Dakota and South Dakota, like the Transition to Organic Partnership Program that NPSES is actually they offer these roadshow events where you can get intense education in these kind of boot camp type settings. There's also other educational opportunities through the South Dakota Specialty Producers Association, specifically in South Dakota. But there's lots, I think, of amazing resources through farmers in both North Dakota and South Dakota. If you're up here in the Northern Plains states, there are some awesome organic farmers that reach out to them, connect with them, and TOPS does also offer a mentorship opportunity, although SPA is not part of that. Rodale and I believe the Organic Farmers Association offers mentorship opportunities for transitioning producers.
Thank you. And all of you just met two farmers that you can go to for that kind of advice and questions, right?
Yep.
So I think we'll open it up to questions from the audience, and you can either type those into chat, or I don't know, can they unmute Angela?
I am unmuting everyone right now. So we're going to allow everyone to unmute, or you can free to ask your questions in the chat, or I believe you have the ability to just unmute and ask your questions. Does anybody have any other questions? We have just about 7 minutes left. If anybody doesn't have a question, I'll ask Martin another question. As you know, it's kind of wondering for me, Martin. Where are your biggest markets right now for your grains? Are they staying in the Midwest, or kind of what does that look like for your marketing?
Yeah, they're kind of staying around here. That's one of the things getting into organic farming is I was really worried about where the markets were going to be, and I met some marketers at the Northern Plains Sustainable Agriculture Society conference. So that first year, but then second, third, once I started really getting into it, they were calling me. So a lot of my stuff has gone to Idaho, Montana. I had some peas that were shipped to Tennessee. My wheat is biodynamic wheat that's gone to New York. It gets cleaned in South Dakota, but it goes to New York and Connecticut. So it's really, really all over. But I've been staying domestic, and then as far as some of the feed markets for my grain, I like to grow crops together, but I've actually had some interest in North Dakota, Minnesota, which has been really helpful. But I guess it doesn't really matter where the markets are, because whenever I do a contract and sell grain, it's always picked up on farm. So they pay for their shipping. I don't care where they're taking it. They took a crop to California one time, paid more for the shipping to get it to California than they did for the actual crop.
Wow. I'm going to open. It looks like maybe
there is a question in chat.
Yeah, there's a question in the chat. Martin talked a lot about Brix testing and how the higher levels of sugar in the plants keep out insects. Angela, do you measure Brix and see a difference in your crops? Also, can you share the best strategies to raise your Brix? Okay, so Martin, I'll let you take the second one. For me, great question, Christy. I used to test Brix. I used to have a Brixometer that I used to test my crops. We stopped doing that. We were doing that a couple years ago, but yes, we never did that when we were just organic. When we went regenerative, we started doing the analysis, looking at the sugars in the plant, as well as penetration tests and water. What do they call that, Martin, where the water goes down? Water penetration tests. Yeah, we started looking at those different things a lot closer. But I think we could I've learned a lot today from Martin. I think we need to do a lot better on our Brix testing. Okay, Martin, what about strategies to raise your Brix?
Well, raising your Brix, it's a whole effort, but balancing your soils, the healthier your plant is, the better it's going to transfer sugars, and it's going to have a healthy root exudates, and that increases your bricks. If you have a low bricks and you want to increase it, as I said, foliars are a great way to build your bricks in the immediate term. And yeah, you can just go out there and test the foliar on a small sample and see if the bricks go up in an hour, 2 hours, next day if they stay. If that works, spray it over your whole crop. But yeah, foliars are amazing.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that, Martin, because we also use foilers um, we also use we did and we do on occasion use foiler spraying and we've also seen that we've done before bricks testing before we sprayed the foilers, brick testing after we sprayed the foiler spray, and we definitely seen a difference in the bricks tests in the plants. But that's a short-term kind of a short-term solution. You really need to be feeding from the soil. So you want to feed below ground, not above ground. So, foliar sprays, they're effective, but maybe just not to be relied on entirely to fix the problem. So maybe the answer to your question, Christy, is the best strategy is to build up your soil to the point where you can get those bricks levels up. But foliar sprays do a fantastic job of helping. Thank you all for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you on a future webinar or field day.